What's up everyone, I'm Eldridge and today we're gonna look at Murmansk Tier 5 Soviet Cruiser. Or is it? The Soviet light cruiser Murmansk was incidentally also known as the USS Milwaukee. Yes, in fact, this is an American ship. It was built in the early 1920s as part of a series of 10 Omaha-class light cruisers, yes, those Omaha-class light cruisers, and construction started in 1918 and was completed in 1923. The USS Milwaukee was in service in the US Navy for 21 years, but it never saw significant naval fleet action. It predominantly did patrols and saw only minor fighting in the Atlantic. It was, however, given to the Soviet Union on a 5-year loan in 1944, and on the 20th of April 1944 it went into Soviet service, commissioned as light cruiser Murmansk as part of the Northern Fleet. It was used to conduct patrol missions in the Arctic Sea for the remainder of the war. The Murmansk participated in Soviet fleet training in 1948. As per agreement, it was returned to the United States in 1949, however it was returned in miserable condition. Allegedly, it was even rat and roach infested. It was deemed unfit for service by the US Navy and sold to American Shipbreakers Incorporated on December 10, 1949. For the stat comparison, you might think, well, what is there to compare? It's an Omaha-class light cruiser, right? So it's really just an Omaha, but in the Soviet tree? Actually, no. Interestingly, there are quite a few differences between the Murmansk and the Omaha. Now, they do have an equal amount of hit points, but for some reason the Murmansk has slightly better armor. The deck armor is exactly the same, the citadel armor is exactly the same, but the gun casement armor on the Murmansk is 6 to 15 millimeters, while it is only 1 to 15 millimeters on the Omaha. I don't really know why that is, to be honest. I couldn't find any historical reasons for this, but in the end, 1 millimeter, 6 millimeter, not gonna make a lot of difference. The gun turrets are just not that well armored. Now, the speed category to me is the absolute most bizarre in this comparison, because they both, being the same ship class, have the same engine, and they both have the same maximum speed. However, for some reason the Murmansk has a slightly tighter turning circle of 10 meters, but the biggest difference is in the rudder shift time. 2.5 second less rudder shift time is a big deal. That makes the Murmansk so much more maneuverable than the Omaha. In concealment, once again, I am completely perplexed. For some reason the Murmansk gets spotted 400 meters later than the Omaha, and I don't really see any particular historical reason for it. I think it's just a gameplay balance type thing. Or Russian bias? Moving on to the guns, here we actually have a difference that can be explained. The Murmansk comes with 6 152mm single mount guns and 2 turrets of 2 152mm guns each. However, of those 6 guns, it can only ever turn 3 onto an enemy at the same time. The Omaha, on the other hand, has 8 single-mount 152mm guns and still has the 2 double-mount 152mm guns as well. The reason for this is that the Omaha-class light cruiser presented in the game is portrayed to be a pre-war design. Pre-World War II, the Omaha-class light cruisers actually did have 8 single-mount guns. The 2 lower aft guns were taken off during the war, the Murmansk being the version of the Omaha class after 1944, when it was given to the Soviets, obviously is the World War II version, and so comes without those 2 aft guns. This is significant as it actually lowers the DPS of the Murmansk below what the Omaha can pull. The Murmansk has 1655 HE DPS or 3461 AP DPS, whereas the Omaha can put out 1892 HE or 3956 AP DPS. In all other gun characteristics they are obviously the same because the guns went... Wait a second, why does the Murmansk have over 2 kilometers more range? As far as I can tell, the Omaha class wasn't fitted with better fire control systems, so why would the range suddenly increase? The only thing I can think of is that Wargaming wants to make range one of the defining characteristics of the Soviet ships. The difference in torpedoes once again can be explained. The Murmansk has only 2 3 torpedo mounts, with 1 on each side, while the Omaha has actually 4 triple torpedo mounts with 2 on each side. Now, this 4 mounts setup is actually unhistorical to begin with, because the Omaha class was fitted with 2 mounts of 3 torpedo tubes and 2 mounts of 2 torpedo tubes. These are the ones at the lower deck inside the ship. These torpedo mounts were taken off later, that is why the Murmansk doesn't have them anymore. However, they were 2 torpedo mounts the entire time. The ship never had 2 sets of 3 torpedo mounts on both sides. So I'm thinking this is just a limitation of how the game works. They can't have different sized torpedo mounts on the same ship, maybe. The other differences are interesting, but again, looking at the Gremyashi, they kind of make sense. Reload is about the same. The Murmansk torpedoes have 8 kilometers range, move at 55 knots, and do 14,400 damage, which incidentally is exactly the same stats that the Gremyashi's torpedoes have at Tier 5. The Omaha's torpedoes have 5.5 kilometers range, move at 56 knots, and do 11,733 damage. Lastly, we should look at the anti-aircraft batteries. The Murmansk can deal 27 DPS at 3.5 kilometers and 109 within 2 kilometers range. That is a lot of DPS, and that will fell a bunch of planes really quickly if they come close. However, the range for the good DPS is pretty limited. 2 kilometers is not a whole lot. And so it's going to be different to protect other ships, but you can definitely protect yourself from planes. The Omaha deals 80 DPS at 2.5 kilometers range, which increases to 84 DPS at 900 meters. Now, you're not very often going to be within 900 meters, and 4 DPS, it's just a bunch of machine guns. It's really not that important. However, it should be said that the Omaha engages air targets sooner than the Murmansk. All in all, it is very difficult to call a clear winner between these two ships. The differences in armor and concealment are negligible. Maneuverability definitely goes to the Murmansk because of the excellent rudder shift time. And while the Murmansk loses a gun in its full broadside, it has 2 kilometers more range, which when we're talking about ranges of 12 and 14 kilometers, that is quite significant, as 12 tends to bring you very close to battleships, which at those ranges are pretty accurate. However, cruisers having some basis in DPS, I would give a slight edge to the Omaha. I think neither of these ships really excel at anti-aircraft, especially because they don't have the focus fire ability. The Murmansk has slightly more raw output, and the Omaha is slightly better at escorting other ships. The Murmansk loses out on 3 torpedoes, but since the Omaha doesn't have the amazing super fast destroyer torpedoes, the Murmansk just ends up having better torpedoes with more range and damage. So I would call this a draw as well. I would say the Omaha has a slight edge over the Murmansk, but then again, the Murmansk is a premium ship and isn't actually supposed to be as strong as the tech tree ships because of its credit and experience bonus. And because of this, I would absolutely call the Murmansk adequate and fit for purpose. So let's give the Omaha another point for Woo America! And we'll give the Murmansk another point for Russian bias. And then we'll just call it an even 2-2. Now let's see what some of these stats look like in game. First thing I want to highlight for this ship is how well it dodges things, like this torpedo for example. Because of the 5-second rudder shift, it is so incredibly easy to just quickly pull in one direction and pull in the other direction, like happening in this. I go toward the smoke, obviously there's torpedoes, and I pull slightly to the right and then immediately to the left and avoid all of the torpedoes. So good. This clip perfectly highlights the range. If you look to the right in front of me, there's an Omaha who has to be so much closer to actually fire at anything. And I can just fire at this Cleveland without anyone shooting at me, because, you know, there's this silly Omaha who has to go so much closer. I can sit here in the back and just pump 3,000 damage into that Cleveland. Boom. And for today's replay, we sadly join in progress because I kind of forgot to hit record at the beginning of the battle. Whoops. I immediately paid for it, of course, because if you can see that cruiser dead in the middle of the field, that was me. 3 perfect salvos and he exploded. And then I saw I wasn't recording and I may have used a curse word. Anyway, in the Murmansk I really like to go behind this island, because even if the famous ambush cloud is sitting around the corner, you do have the capability of just dodging the torpedoes because of the rudder shift time this ship has. However, there's no torpedoes, and I see this Omaha, and as luck would have it, immediately zero in on his citadel and got him dead to rights. He, I'm guessing, is either AFK, he rage quit, or something else, because he's not even really firing back. Now he's firing, but it's rather ineffective. And I'm just letting him have it here. The torpedoes I just fired speculatively. I wasn't even really thinking they might hit. But as luck would have it, he slowed down and then turned outwards and directly into my torpedoes. Thanks!
Enemy cruisers sunk.
Now, had this been a good player in the Omaha, he probably could have out-DPS'd me with his guns, because the Omaha does have more DPS. So going into one of those, yeah, careful there, destroyer guy. Not so tunnel visioningly, please. Anyway, yeah, that could have gone very differently. That Cleveland is a little smarter, hiding behind the island, but I'm not actually that interested in spending too much time trading shots with the Cleveland. However, as you can see, the fantastic range of the Murmansk, I am actually still in range of that Cleveland, even though I don't have a line of sight, but yeah, the range is really the best feature of this ship. And it has the accuracy to make it happen as well. That's kind of a bad decision. I should have gone in front of the island. I'm just wasting a bunch of time here, basically. It's probably still one of my bigger weaknesses, that I don't plan my movement far enough ahead in time. And as such, I just end up spending a lot of, you know, wasted time driving around that stupid island. And so, yeah. I do get to the party a little bit later, which I think costs one of our guys his life. But I'm not entirely certain. I guess we'll see when the time comes. The enemy team is playing this game very, very passively. They have a lot of battleships just sitting there at long range trying to snipe us off. A tactic that I don't always find that effective, to be honest. And especially they have a lot of people just sitting around their cap circle. I mean, technically I'm in our cap circle as well, but you know, I'm circling around. It's not like I'm planning on staying here. Our team is making a little bit of a push through that pass to the west of that central island, which could definitely be dangerous. Wonderfully, I get some shots on that Cleveland. I'm not even sure if they hit. I guess we'll hear in a second if they hit. Not yet really in range of this battleship because he's driving away from me. I'm going to have to get closer first. And we're definitely going to have to look out for these three guys flanking around. If we can't end the game quickly enough with this push through the center, we might have to come back to defend. And this is really what I was talking about. Like, at this point, I would have to think in-game that, you know, that's a possibility. And even with playing quite a bit of World of Tanks, I just don't have the skill to predict these kind of changes in the game yet. So I'm still working on that. Bear with me. You know, I'm just human. I spend as much time in the game as I can while I'm letting this battleship have it. I think it's a Fuso. Still have trouble distinguishing the Fuso from the Congo at that kind of range. Oh, what do we have here? A little destroyer behind the island, eh? Trying to sneak up on my buddies. Well, I never, friend. Again, torpedoes are a little bit more speculatively. I kind of just want to cut his path off there. But he really just wants to throw some torpedoes into the mix. Kind of unlucky for him, though. He got himself beached, or he just stopped. I'm not entirely sure, you know, what he's doing there, but he stopped. And so I am gonna have him. First salvo doesn't do all that much, but yeah, I mean, where is he gonna go? You know, he's stuck there, so he's definitely dead. And that's the end of it. Nothing to say about that one, really. I mean, there was really nothing he could do. He shouldn't have stopped there. He shouldn't have run aground, whatever he did. He should have been a bit more conservative with his torpedoes. And I take a pounding from this battleship. This guy was either really good or using the aim mod. I'm not above accusing people of using it, I gotta be honest. Until that mod is gone, yeah, I hate having to assume that people might have it, but I mean, this guy did aim really well. Even after I died, he kept just aiming perfectly every single time he fired his guns, so. That, I think, was the other guy, though. Still pretty close, though. But yeah, now we're really just letting this this aircraft carrier feel the might and the pain. A little tip for aircraft carrier players, by the way, this is not what you want to do. This is why you don't want to camp your base or your border of the map. You always want to follow your main fleet around. In this case, he should have gone with the others down the western flank. Would have put him a little farther away from us, but at least he wouldn't get his butt kicked like he's here. Because, I mean, there's really not much he can do. He's just sitting there waiting for us to whittle him down. And this battleship, man, he is on my ass. Luckily, this other guy isn't paying too much attention to me. Because I would not very much like to fight two battleships. This being a Congo. I'm pretty sure this is a Congo. Because it doesn't have the ridiculously high turret construct. Fires a broadside at me and gets me. The shame. The shame. But oh wait, what is that in the water? Is that torpedoes? Ah yes, those are torpedoes. Let's see what happens to those torpedoes, shall we? As he's being engaged by the rest of the team. Oh yeah, let's look at this guy because it gives us a better look of our torpedoes. And there they go. Oh, that looks good. Oh yep. Thank you. And that's the fourth kill. Well, I'm dead. So let's look at the stats. Pretty good. Pretty good, I gotta say. Definitely my best game up to that point. Almost 100,000 damage in the Murmansk in a very much tier 6 game. That's all the facts. Now what about my opinion? Personally, I love the Murmansk. I think it is awesome. Out of all the premium ships right now, I definitely think this one is the one that gives you the most value. So if you're really just looking for a premium ship that doesn't cost too much, that will earn you a lot of credits and free experience, is fun to play, and is absolutely adequate for its tier, there is really no better choice. The Murmansk is a crazy moneymaker, and while I really do love the Gremiashi, this is the ship I make all of my credits with. In fact, I have yet to play a bad game in the Murmansk. Every single time I take this baby out for a spin, it just goes swimmingly, and I get a bunch of kills, and I go out with like 150 to 200,000 credits, and it's just awesome. It pays for all of my other ships. Again, to clarify, that is my opinion. The facts do not speak for this. The facts say that this is a very average ship compared to regular ships. But as it is a premium ship, average is kind of where you want to be. You just don't want those premium ships to be too weak. If you are looking to buy just one premium ship to make all of your credits with and you're asking me which one you should get, this is the one I think you should get. If you enjoyed this review, please consider liking and subscribing. And if there's any other ships you would like me to review, or if there's any other videos you would like me to make, or if you just have any feedback at all, leave it in the comments. I'll read it, I'll answer, and I'll even take it to heart. Tomorrow's video will finally be my destroyer guide. But until then, I've been Eldritch Master Donkey, and I'll see you in another video.